The Dreamcast, the console that simultaneously marked the beginning and end of an era in gaming. For fans, the Dreamcast was the console that would bring Sega back to the prominence it enjoyed during the Sega Genesis days. But for Sega, the Dreamcast was not only an opportunity to learn from all the mistakes it made with its previous machine, the Sega Saturn, but also a chance to innovate and bring something new to the world of console gaming.
The Dreamcast was a really kind of defining moment in my memories of video games, because up until that point Sega just provided me with so many great memories with the Genesis and even the Sega Saturn. I was a really big fan of that, and I think that system really showed off Sega's creativity. But because the Sega Saturn was such a spectacular retail failure, Sega really had to step up and produce a product that was not only just kind of a makeup for what they did with the Saturn, but also something that kind of said like, hey, Sega's serious. They want to contend with the PlayStation. They want to contend with all these other platforms.
The Dreamcast was far and away like my favorite system ever.
If you do sort of a comparison to like the kind of broke-ass launches that were taking place prior to that from the Sega products, it's kind of shaky, because from about the 32X on, it wasn't real smart how they launched most of the stuff. 32X got flung out there, Saturn got flung out there, and it was not great. But this time, they really seemed to have all their stuff together.
From the very beginning, it was clear that Sega wanted to make the Dreamcast everything the Sega Saturn wasn't. The Saturn featured a multi-CPU architecture that was difficult for developers to get the hang of, so for the Dreamcast, Sega went with a single Hitachi CPU and a Power VR graphics chip.
And they came to us and they said, we're going to do a system. Really? Well, here's what we hope you do. We hope you do a great 3D graphics coprocessor and connect it and with a modem built in. And they went, okay, we'll do the 3D and we'll do the modem. Mysteriously, they got a few months further along and they said, we changed our mind. We're gonna use a non-standard 3D, it's like a Hitachi thing that nobody in the West there was not even documentation for, and we're gonna take the modem out. We went, well, we told you, we do it under these conditions. We're not gonna support it.
I wanted Dreamcast to be a competitive system against PlayStation. I wanted to have the online multiplayer because I knew that Sony was going to lag behind in that area. And I felt that then would be the differentiation between those two systems. I believe that would then take Sega back to be the lead company.
One of Sega's most important moves was to make sure that every single Dreamcast came with a built-in modem that would eventually let users connect online and play games with each other.
When we were getting ready to launch the Dreamcast, Mr. Okawa, he and I didn't see eye to eye. Because I wanted a modem put into the system, the Japanese team put a $25 Rockwell modem in. So it took the bill of materials into a different place. As a company, we're not going to make money on the hardware. Not that he ever did, but he was really upset by it.
And we delivered an online gaming experience via a 28K modem. We had a broadband adapter later, you might remember, and Quake was one of the first games that utilized a broadband adapter. But in those days, the way most people connected to the internet was via dial-up. And we had to create a pretty decent, which I think, and I take great pride, and Greg Thomas and the guys at the Visual Concepts should take, to this day, great pride in having created that. They'll never take this away from us. It was the first online gaming experience that anybody really had, through a console, of course.
As the North American launch of September 9th, 1999 approached, it seemed as though Sega was doing everything right, including an extensive ad campaign featuring the slogan, "It's thinking." That slogan served the Dreamcast into the final months and weeks leading up to the system's launch and beyond.
We had these mysterious 15-second ads, which you might remember on MTV. Don't think out loud, it might hear you. Which we didn't even put the Sega logo on.
We were actually very viral about the Dreamcast launch in a day before viral marketing was really kind of the buzzword. We had people on the streets across the country drawing the Dreamcast swirl on sidewalks, at schools, at music venues, at places like that.
At the MTV, I believe, Movie Awards that year in '99, the Dreamcast was like the sponsor of that. I mean, they had the big Dreamcast swirl in the background of the stage. It's where Sega unveiled its It's Thinking ad campaign, where it had like the crazy ninja stole a Dreamcast and the Dreamcast is tracking her down and makes a plane go crazy kind of a thing.
They had commercials. They had some cool commercials. They were pushing for like the Sega vibe again. Lightning struck for them because they got this insane mascot called Segata Sanshiro. He had a gi and he had like big Elvis hair. It was crazy. And he was their mascot. And the best thing about that whole campaign was he was pissed off. And they're the most amazing commercials on YouTube people should check out, because Segata Sanshiro and just about every freaking commercial that was awesome would go around and beat people up just to force them to play the Saturn. But they lost it, obviously, towards, mid to late of the Saturn's life. Just that kind of spirit wasn't there, but it was kind of back because they had all these goofy commercials, some cool, some not. Really, if there was a way to sum up the ad campaign for the Dreamcast in Japan, it was it. Let's try it. And so, they started to kind of make fun of themselves or tweak, their history a little bit. So the mascot for the Dreamcast was just a salaryman. It was like a dude in a suit. And his commercials weren't as funny as Segata Sanshiro, but it was just really hilarious. He was sort of like Japanese Kevin Butler, in a way.
Launch day finally arrived, and the Dreamcast hardware was joined by what was arguably one of the best launch lineups for a console. Soul Calibur, Sonic Adventure, and two crucial sports games, NFL 2K and Ready to Rumble, rounded out a group of games that offered something for just about everyone.
So I remember very clearly that there was two launches to the Dreamcast, right? There's a Japanese launch, and then there was the impending US launch. So
a friend of mine, Eric, picked it up. He picked up the Japanese version. He overpaid. Like, we don't even want to talk about how much he overpaid, but he overpaid. I remember we were hanging out, and he didn't tell me. So we were hanging out, and he's like, "Oh, we should do this one thing," and he like pulls it out of his bag. I'm like, "Holy crap!" Because he had that, and I think it was Sega Rally and VF. And so there went the whole day.
The Japanese launch had, not a whole lot of games that were really cool. And then they basically walked that in the US launch when they just exploded with awesome stuff like Ready to Rumble.
The Dreamcast was actually the first console that I ever imported from Japan. So ahead of the European launch or the US launch.
I remember it like it was yesterday. September 9th, 1999.
I was their midnight launch for the Dreamcast because I could not wait.
I'd actually been working with Tom McShade Movie Theater that summer, and he kind of he was really hyped for it. And just being exposed to that day after day, week after week, I kind of bought into it.
I remember they released screenshots of Sonic Adventure. I never liked Sonic before. They released screenshots of this in July, and it made me pre-order the system, and I was super excited. So I pre-ordered Sonic Adventure, Power Stone, NFL 2K, and then I heard about this game, Soul Calibur, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get 4 games, that'll be my 4th.
I stayed up till like 4 o'clock in the morning, playing before work and things like that.
Oh, and I opened the box, hook it all up, get the shrink wrap off, Soul Calibur, and it was like 5 in the morning. I'm not like a huge fighting fan. I don't like 3D ones at all, so all of a sudden it's like, what is this game? And it was just so smooth and it was so gorgeous. And I couldn't stop playing. And I got the other games at launch, the one that clicked was NFL 2K. So I just kept wanting to go back to Soul Calibur.
And then when the system launched, it just had so many awesome games as soon as I needed them.
The strong launch lineup contributed to the massive success of the Dreamcast in a 24-hour period, which, at the time, set a record for the industry, with $98.4 million in combined hardware and software sales.
I thought the launch, and still think the launch, was one of the best product launches I'd ever been involved in. We moved, if I remember rightly the numbers, somewhere close to about 500,000 units in 72 hours.
The launch was actually the biggest 24 hours in entertainment history as far as actual money coming through the door. So the previous record had gone to Star Wars Phantom Menace. And we got, I think it was close to $49 million in retail that first 24 hours. So the launch was phenomenal. We completely over-anticipated our goals and sold through pretty much every unit that was on the shelves.
I remember actually not 3 or 4 blocks from here, having a party that night and with the team and unfurling a banner that said $97 million worth of product was sold that day in the United States.
From all appearances, the Dreamcast was doing well, and Sega was on its way to re-establishing itself as a competitor in the market, thanks to brisk hardware and software sales. But with the PlayStation 2 announcement from Sony, along with a lack of support from Electronic Arts, a shadow continually loomed over the Dreamcast's success. In September of 2000, Sega launched SegaNet and released its first batch of online-compatible games, starting with NFL 2K1.
I remember that day very well because they were doing NFL 2K. I remember being so excited because that football game, when it first came out on the Dreamcast, was amazing. You'd be able to play football online. Like, you know, dream realized. Like, here's a video game milestone, right? Hooked up with this dude from IGN, and we're like, oh, we're totally gonna do this. And it was like Saturday. I remember we were both really excited. We're like, we're playing football online. And we got on, and yeah, we connected, and it was super laggy. And I remember, even as laggy as it was, you know, like a little start and stopping, you know, I remember still totally playing football with the dude. So
I had a really weird online experience. I love NFL 2K. So I actually bought a keyboard, and I think it was just specifically for talking in NFL 2K. So there's my brother, who's not a huge gamer, was visiting one time, and I was playing like some random guy in NFL 2K online. And my brother just like was spamming him with like 5'8", 7'6", 309 Jenny, like that kind of stuff. And the guy must have thought I was insane and really talented because I was playing well, talking non-stop nonsense.
I remember playing Phantasy Star Online for hours and hours and hours.
Phantasy Star Online, like the first, like that was the first game I really got into online, like outside of stuff like Quake and Half-Life.
I can't think about the Dreamcast era and not think about Phantasy Star Online.
And a lot of people got way into Phantasy Star Online. The only reason I got into it at all was because I found out you could kind of like rip people off, which sounded awesome to me. It's like a game I can kind of trick people and cheat them out of their money. I kind of want to try that. And the setup was so awesome. If you ever saw the setup, it was awesome. Because basically it was this whole like, I'll totally sell you this cool thing. And like, oh, you know, but you had to do this drop thing. Like you had to drop the money, you had to drop the thing, and it was like a real quick whoop. You know, everybody's got to pick it up like all, you know, cool Indiana Jones style, right? It was like, you know.
It was funny because up until that point, I associated kind of playing games online with PC. And I associated that kind of cooperative play, again, with PC. And it seemed totally weird to do that on a console.
Phantasy Star Online was obviously awesome for a bunch of other reasons as well. That just happened to be the one I liked.
Despite having a great lineup of games and online functionality that no console had before it, the Dreamcast couldn't compete with the arrival of Sony's PlayStation 2. Developer support eventually slowed, as did hardware sales, forcing Sega to rethink its strategy and eventually exit the hardware business. In January 2001, Sega made it official and announced that it would discontinue the Dreamcast and begin its new life as a third-party publisher.
But I just believe that Mr. Okawa decided he didn't want to be in the hardware business. So he said, end of story, we're out of it, we're only going to be a software company.
So I kind of started to find out that we were going to be developing software for other platforms was sort of the first thing that I found out. I walked into a conference room and I'm sitting there looking around and I was like, N64? PS2? Why does it say N64 and PS2 on this wide erase board? And why's Sonic the Hedgehog's name under there?
Its legacy will always be the first time a lot of people connected to a console and played an online game, as well as bringing some great games to market. There's no doubt about that. People to this day still pull out their Dreamcast every now and again and pop in a favorite game. All of those games still hold a little piece of gamers' hearts everywhere around. They were all innovative, they were fun, and I don't think anybody ever regrets buying the Dreamcast.
As I was into the whole Dreamcast fan site thing, in fact, the Dreamcast is kind of the reason why I have the job that I have now. Looking back, I mean, I think Sega is really responsible for pushing this industry in that direction, you know, really kind of pushing online and showing what online means to games and how it can improve the experience.
In January of 2001, just a couple months after the PlayStation 2 came out, Sega pulled the plug on it. Yay, my system still has that new system smell and it's already like a lame duck. The Wii is 4.5 years old and it has just now become a lame duck.
That box was awesome and it did a lot of really cool stuff. It just had an unfortunate I would say, time frame of launch and existence.
It was the last time in this industry where, you know, the crazy gamer kid was trying to do something. Like, it was kind of a last hurrah from the industry. I feel like we were the last kind of rebel in the industry.
And that thing lived forever. I mean, even after it kind of officially died, in Japan, certainly they were pumping games out up until like 2007, which is, you know, not that long ago, which is pretty amazing.
4.5 years for the Wii. I played my Dreamcast more in the first month than I've played my Wii, like, over the total of that 4.5 years.
The Dreamcast dying in a lot of ways was the canary in the gas mine for the industry. Because we were a proper industry now. Video games were industry, they were money. And people needed to take a much more revenue-focused just approach to everything they did.
I'm good.
I need to talk more about the Dreamcast. I know that you are like, you've got way too much stuff to edit through here, but like I haven't even gotten to the shooters, like the shoot 'em ups, the